Okay. My lovely bib. Am I the first one of the day? You can leave a new sticker.
Yep. 448.
That's the other thing, like, if you're on the World Cup anyways, the service you get from Logan is like, because he's there with you. He's like, oh, you want this part? Yeah. Like, does he travel like much as that? Yeah, one touch, yeah. Like in hookups and I like smash my phone. Good.
Okay. 161.
Sorry.
Welcome to Ruhpolding and the stunning Bavarian Alps. One of the circuit's most iconic and noisiest venues hosts a full week of high-intensity racing after a thrilling women's relay yesterday. It's the turn of the men. Here's a look at the course. 4 athletes in each of the teams, 3 laps of 2.5 kilometres and of course 2 shooting stages as well, and a whole lot of anticipation after the closest relay in recorded history in Oberhof. The rivalries are being stoked once again in this final men's relay before the Olympic Games. 2 degrees, very similar conditions to what we saw yesterday for the women's relay, where the top 3 teams finished within 3 seconds, mimicking what of course had happened last week in the men's race in Oberhof. Scott Dixon, former British biathlon coach, alongside myself, Ellen Ellard. Well, ahead of the Olympic Games, Scott, this is exactly the level of competition in the relays that we want to see.
It certainly is, and it really is a testament to the teams for managing to produce such a depth of field that over the course of 4 different racers, the field is this close at the finish line. It's crazy, and it makes for such exciting watching, but also it makes it very hard to predict exactly who is going to succeed in these races. So a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement, and I wouldn't want to call it today.
You say it's hard to predict. I think if you look at the results from the last 3 men's relays, the results I think what you would say would paint a very different picture to what we're seeing, of course, out on the tracks. Norway have won all 3 races. France have finished second in all 3 races so far. And Sweden third. Of course, last week was such an anomaly in the racing that we saw, and so incredibly exciting. Scott, yesterday, as always here in Ruhpolding, we saw very still conditions on the range. Of course, a challenging course all round on the skis as well in terms of the climbing that the athletes have to do. Will that be a leveller today?
It certainly is a tricky course, but it can be slightly less technical in terms of cornering, and that can make it easier for some of the lower nations, the less technical, the less au fait with the climbs, able to stay with the pack for sure. But one of the things that is less predictable, even though it is the case that the Norwegians have been up at the top, is the way that it happens. So many teams ended up on the penalty loop just last week, and the finish was so close. It could have gone in any direction, whether that's Sweden, Germany, France, Italy. And that is what's going to make it really exciting today, is that the unpredictability lies in the how is going to unfold.
Yep. As well, the roar for Justus Strelo, who leads Germany out today. It's Victor Brandt who, for the first time since the opening race weekend, will lead Sweden out in the one change to the quartet that finished third in Östersund. Molka Stefansson, the athlete who is not included today, of course, with the return of Victor Brandt. And a change to the lineup, you can see there for France. It was Emilien Jacquelin who were expecting to go on the second leg. The French press reporting that he developed a fever yesterday, so it's Oscar Lombardo who comes into his place. He was part of the winning relay team in Novo Mesto last season. And here is the quartet that has been much rotated, much changed this season, the Norwegians, but they have still, Scott, won all 3 races so far.
Yeah, the Norwegians really could field a few varieties of teams and still be the favourite, and is one of the rare nations that applies to. Less could be said for the Swedes, and a big day for Victor Brandt to prove himself for the Swedish as a potential viable option for them in the relay at the Olympics.
Well, this is first time in the relay team since the bronze medal in Östersund. Back to his role in leading out the Swedes, who will look up to upgrade their 3 bronze medals to either a silver or a gold today. Well, a stunning setting here in Ruhpolding. It always attracts the crowds, and on a Thursday afternoon, well, the range and of course around the tracks here already packed out. Wherever you can find a space, there will be someone who will be excited to see how this men's relay plays out today. Already a few rows of people deep in this area, the start area next to the grandstand. So the final men's relay before the Olympic Games is underway. Who can take the momentum into the greatest competition of them all? Well, Scott, it is a beautiful view here in Ruhpolding. It really is a special race as we come closer and closer to the Olympic Games next month.
It certainly is, and there's names back here in this mass start who do stand in contention, perhaps not as a nation to do well in the race, but as individuals to set themselves up early. For example, we have Andrei Rasaguyevs. He's wearing bib number 21 for Latvia, and he really loves this course and has proven on many times that he's capable of handing over in first place.
I see a glimpse there of the ski jumping hills. It really is such an incredible multi-sport venue used all year round. Snow, rain, and sun. We do have glimmers of the sun peeking through the trees here in the Moravian woodland this afternoon.
You can see how thick the snow is, or deep and slushy. It makes it very difficult to glide with the skis comfortably over the surface, because every time you push, your foot sinks into it, almost like you're running on a beach.
Well, we know it is quite a still range. We see that so regularly here in Ruhpolding. What will the key things be for success today out on the track, Scott?
Well, I think tactics really and composure on the first lap. There's no need to get overexcited. There's no need for anyone with the lower bib numbers from Austria, Bulgaria, Lithuania to try and get to the front. In fact, there's a little bit of a tangle there. You can already see as they get bunched up, it becomes a little bit hectic, and there is the risk of getting your poles tangled and broken. Stay composed, just enjoy and relax on the first lap, and then after shoot number 1, when it's calmed down, that's the right time to start making a move.
Now, of course, is where the race really starts as we come into one of the first significant climbs. And you can take a look back here as, well, leaving the bounds of the course is Karayev of Kazakhstan. Now, we did see this the other week, didn't we? And that did seem less intentional, Scott. He checked his shoulder. It seemed like he was potentially fourth with no other option to go. What did you make of that move and the fact the athlete from Kazakhstan has left the course there?
Well, yeah, for sure. Now, he has found himself quite far in the lead, which I can't say was particularly predictable. But that wasn't as a result of the fact that he left the course. It was very bunched together, and I don't think that the jury will have too much of an issue like they did with Bulgaria, disqualifying them from the race just last week, because that move was intentional and it allowed him to get an unfair advantage, and that's what the jury care about. If the rule is, if you leave the course, you must enter at the same point, unless you did not gain an unfair advantage, and I think in this instance it did not apply.
And so it is Vladislav Kirayev of Kazakhstan. He leads the way, has a personal best of 20th, and that was from the pursuit in Hochfilzen last season. In the bright pink kits and pushing the pace on the front of this field. Been fairly bunched together, but now into a train of athletes as they make their way through this first lap here in Ruhpolding.
It's one of the tough decisions that those leading teams have to make. There's always a comfort with taking the first lap a little bit slower, a bit calmer, but then you do run the risk of the likes of some of these smaller nations making it to the front, and then if that happens, 1, 2, 3, 4 athletes, all of a sudden it's gotten busy and you're having to get through a tangle of skis and poles. So keeping a solid pace up front can sometimes be in the best interest of the leading nations.
Well, it is a spectacular sight as they make their way past a temporary stand out on the course, and already so impressive to see how many fans have made the journey. About an hour and a half outside of Munich.
You can see this drafting effect here. The athletes who are behind and in the tuck position are facing a lot less wind resistance than the one leading at the front. And then we saw just last week Hannah Oberg utilizing that exact strategy to slingshot past Julia Simon on the climb in Oberhof.
So into shooting 1 they come. Just Strelo, the first into the range, followed by Nikiska of Czechia, and it is just Strelo who has the best prone shooting hit rate. Admittedly, his standing has taken quite the drop this season, and misses to kick things off. Italy with a miss, Germany with a miss, but Strelo recovering well and getting the next 4 targets down quickly. France going well, 3 out of 3, that's 4 now so far. Norway starting with a miss. Just how much of a surprise is that for you, Scott?
Oh, it certainly is a surprise, and it's really important now for Dalyshevdal Dal to get this target. Of course, he can lean on his exceptional ski speed, but that's not something that any biathlete wants to do, especially when they're trying to show the selection committee that they are a viable option for the relay at the Olympics. He needs this target.
Oh, just look at that, as well as we wait for this final target to go down, and it is finally down from Johannes Dale-Shevdal, but leading the way. You couldn't have predicted it better coming out of shooting one. It's Andrei Rastaguyevs of Latvia, and we know just how much he loves to race here, Scott.
He certainly does. He's a really talented athlete, very fast. He does make it up to the higher order of things from time to time, although it's become less often these days. But when the shooting goes well for Andrei Rastaguyevs, everything can come together because he's very often quick on the skis.
His last podium was here last season in the individual, finishing third on that day.
He's never won a race, and I always waited for the day that he would win a race because he's been there or thereabouts a couple times, 3 times in second place. I believe most of those occasions Martin Fourcade was the culprit who took the first place, but coming second to Martin Fourcade is essentially a win in any other book.
Well, he has so much experience, doesn't he? Over 350 starts on the World Cup, and now 37 years old. You do wonder if his days competing for titles, gold medals, maybe beyond him, but we saw with Jakov Fak last season on home snow, can be done.
Well, Simon Eder, he's still managing to pull out surprises, and Oberhof last week coming out of the, I can't remember what leg he was, but leading as he came out of the stand shoot with some impeccable shooting. And there's another breach of course.
Something that we are keeping a particularly keen eye on, and the director clearly is as well, after the situation last week with the Bulgarian team leaving the bounds of the course and being disqualified for it, as Fabien Claude now takes to the front. Rastaguyev's in behind, and just Estrela of course carries that one miss through the first visit to the range. Next time they go into the range it will be in the stand position.
There's many years before where it was on this very hill where Tarja Bø did leap outside of the bounds and skip up the hill, but on the downhill section, only for a couple of the cones, but I don't remember there being any infractions on that occasion. The speed coming down the back end, it's called the wall, or it's quite a notorious downhill where it really does send you at a rapid pace, but a lovely recovery afterwards leading to this teardrop here, where the biathletes are able to get up that steep bit before breaking into skate 2 or V2, and then this tight corner, a really important point where the athletes have to skate on their outside leg to maintain that speed around that tight bend.
You'd pay to have an ear in that conversation, wouldn't you, Scott? The Norwegian team and the French team in discussion after both. Well, 2 very different visits to the range, and of course it has left the Norwegians down the order, with France out front with clean shooting. Rastaguyevs of Latvia still glued to the heels of Fabien Claude.
And Fabien Claude, I think, seizing the opportunity to make it harder and harder for Dale-Shevdal to close the gap. Of course, if anyone can, Dale-Shevdal is one among 3, I suppose, who are actually capable of making just an enormous impact on the skis in just one lap. But I don't think it's strategically very wise for Dale-Shevdal to try and recuperate that lost time. It's better for him to just follow his race strategy, take it nice and slow, or nice and controlled at his controlled race pace, and then next time in the shooting range, do better.
Brief shot of the Italians there, led out by Patrick Braunhofer, and there is no Tommaso Giacomel in the relay squad today. He has been rested by the Italian coaches, of course, leading the way now in the total score competition, and they'll want to keep him, Scott, as fresh as possible going into the Olympic Games.
A very wise decision, and I think it will be for the best. He's clearly in very good shape, and if he raced today, you could expect to see him at the very top of his game. But the Olympics is all that matters in the eyes of Tommaso Giacomel and the Italian team, even though he is fighting for the overall yellow bib.
So in come the first leg athletes, and well, it doesn't get any stiller than that, does it? You could be forgiven for mistaking that as a frozen screen there, but it is indeed incredibly still. Wind flags, perfect conditions, but we did see plenty of drop shots in the first visit to the range. Miss now for Claude of France. Germany moving well with Justus Strelo, and he will be the first away. A disaster for France. All 3 extra rounds will be required to keep France out of the penalty loop.
Oh, exceptional shooting from Victor Brandt. A huge amount of pressures on his shoulder to make it for the Swedish team, but now it looks like he's just used 1 spare for the duration of this race, and a good comeback there for Dali Shevdal.
But early on, once around the penalty loop go France and Fabien Claude, who had led coming into the range. And still only 23.8 seconds behind is Dali Shevdal.
And it would not surprise me if this man is able to close most, if not all of that on this last leg. He has an immense ability on the last leg to cover ground exceptionally fast.
Well, what went wrong there for Fabien Claude? Scott having to use all 3 of the extra rounds and unable to keep his team out of the penalty loop.
Well, he skied very quick on that second lap. You could hear the breathing when he was on the mat. I do wonder if he was pushing the pace just a little too hard, perhaps trying to capitalise on Norway's first ever on the range by Dali Shevdal, and maybe it was just too much pace into the range, but there are so many things in biathlon that can lead to shooting like that. The psychological components, not least among them.
So it is, much to the home crowd's delight. Germany leading the way with Justus Strelo tucked in behind. Victor Brandt on his return to the Swedish relay squad. In Italy, they may not have their star man with them today, but holding firm in third.
Rene Zakna of Estonia doing a great job, as he is so often capable in relays. Another one who loves the first legs of a relay. I remember in Antolz he is particularly good there, manages to get his team round often in the top 3, and that's great because where are the Olympics going to be held? I think Estonia has a really good chance there of getting themselves into the top 10 at the Olympic Games.
And it is Rene Zakna of Estonia who holds 4th. Dovzan of Slovenia in 5th. Rafika who was leading, dropping down to 6th. Sebastian Stolder in 7th for Switzerland. And Adam Runnels, after leaving the range in 4th for Canada, dropping down to 8th. And well, he's pursued by Johannes Dali Shevdal and trying to make up as much of the damage as possible. Here's Fabien Claude of France.
And Dali Shevdal already bringing it down to 9.8 seconds from 23.8 seconds. So an impressive 14 seconds now already, and that's just over halfway through this last lap.
Dropping back though, Justus Strelo, as we see Stella Holmlogolide, who missed out in Oberhof due to illness. He's back in the team, and well, that will be a huge boost considering where they find themselves in this race to the Norwegians. Gritted teeth from Victor Brandt, who is giving it absolutely everything on this final lap, and it has put the cat amongst the pigeons, Scott.
Well, do you know, this is the only result that I think Victor Brandt could really afford to be in with a shot of being selected for the Olympic Games. But what great timing and what incredible shooting, only using 1 spare and beating some of the best names in biathlon around this leg 1. There's still a ways to go, but he's opening up a lead and really making it hard for Dali Shevdal to close the gap. He's managing, but with only a few seconds since the last checkpoint.
Matching him stride for stride is Patrick Braunhofer of Italy. Of course, the Winter Olympics happening in his back garden this year. The 26-year-old is, well, he's throwing absolutely everything down here to match the pace of Victor Brandt, Scott.
Yeah, wow, it's such an impressive attack. And Victor Brandt, you can see how much this means to him. But Braunhofer equally, it's not an easy team to make it in the Italians these days. And Lucas Hofer looking on with eagerly next to Jesper Nelin of Sweden, who will be a bit anxious, I suppose, taking it out in front of all these tens of thousands of fans.
Well, he wasn't too far away from a personal best last weekend. Patrick Braunhofer finishing 24th in the sprint in Oberhof, and it will be the Italians who hand over first in that bright blue kit, and then it's the blue and yellow of Sweden. Germany still up there, they'll hand over in fourth, with Estonia just sneaking in third. Norway recovering well, and just look at that for a time gap now. Scott, you said that he'd be able to close the gap in the final lap, and Johannes Dahle Shevdal's cut it to just 5.9 seconds.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. I want to say incredible because it is on a human level, but it's also quite predictable. We know how fast that man is on the last lap, so it's certainly not out with anyone's expectations that he can get 20 seconds, almost making it look easy. But there you go, that's the exact scene we needed there. That was not easy, and his body is punished as a result of that poor shooting in prone.
Well, an excellent day in the office for Patrick Braunhofer, who can only just about stay on his feet. And France handing over well down the pack, and handing over to Oscar Lombardo, who wasn't expected to start in this field, Scott. This does feel like the kind of situation where they'd be desperate for someone like Emilien Jacquelin, who we know can go so well in pursuit and just throw everything down when they do find themselves behind.
Yeah, for sure. And Oscar Lombardo, he really is a top-level biathlete. And I think that he's in the correct leg. Leg 2, there's a little bit less pressure, because if he does make errors, then there is always the chance that his team, Quentin Fillon-Maillet, Olympic gold medalist, Eric Perrault, one of the best in the world, can recover that lost time. But Johannes Tingnes Bø on this stadium, in his first race for the Norwegian team, he went around the penalty loops. And that happens in relay races because it's so hard mentally. But I think Oscar Lombardo will be able to handle the pressure well.
Part of the winning relay team in Novo Mesto last season. That's the only relay win that he has in his cabinet. We're hoping to add to that today, as will France, who went unbeaten last season outside of course, the World Championships, where it was Norway who come into this season as the reigning world and Olympic champions. France, an excellent season, but this time round it is Norway who have won all 3 races so far and looking to make it a clean sweep before the Olympic Games. But it's Lucas Hofer who leads through 8.7 kilometres. Glued to his back is Jesper Nelin.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a little bit nervous for Lucas Hofer there. It looks like he's really attacking this first lap, which is of course the nature of the sport. But I do wonder if the adrenaline and excitement of being up there at the front has led him to go perhaps a little too fast on leg 1, but only time will tell.
A 4-second cut of the gap to the leaders of Oscar Lombardo, who has picked up from Fabien Claude. Here's look at Johannes Dahle Shevdal after finishing his race. So work already being done by Oscar Lombardo to close the gap to this leading pack, led by Lucas Hofer.
And this pace now looking a little bit more settled, and as a result the field is bunching.
USA represented by Maxime Germain in this second leg. He finds himself down in 8th, but still in contention, of course, with this leading pack, all within the space of around 10 seconds. As well, they head towards the 9.3 kilometre mark now, and well, it's 12 that we have within the space of 4 seconds here, Scott.
I think everyone's working as a team to try and make it as competitive as possible, which is seems to be the theme of the last couple of relays. But it makes it so interesting when so many teams are capable of being up there, not just on the podium, but the top 10 is really hard to call. There's times in the race in Oberhof where Austria was in the lead, when Switzerland was in the lead. Now seeing Estonia right up there at the front. Of course, plenty of the race still to go, and it's great to see Legride up there showing himself at the front of the field.
Well, a huge boost to the Norwegian team to have him back and fit. Of course, we'll be telling the next couple of days of individual competition. It's a key sign of just how well he's recovered from the illness that saw him out of Oberhof. Of course, the reigning total score winner. And he leads the train of 12 into the range. And of course, as you can see there, holds such an impressive prone record. Three men in this field, they all dropped down at very similar times, holding a accuracy record of over 90% so far this season. It is a miss for the Italian Lucas Hoffer. Czechia starting with a miss as well. Germany, 2 misses now for Czechia. Norway moving very well with Stella Holmgren, as you'd have expected, but same with Sweden, and they'll be away side by side.
Yeah, really lovely shooting there from Legride. A bit slower to get the first shot down. His right elbow was slipping a little bit on the paint on the mat. He adjusted it a couple times, took the time to get it right. He felt comfortable, and 5 clean shots.
5 out of 5 for Oscar Lombardo as well, not needing the extra ounce like his teammate.
Another aspect of Lombardo's race right now, which is worth pointing out, is that he's actually, the expectations are off, because for Claude to go around the penalty loop on the first leg, it lowers the pressure. If he was handed over to in first, then the dynamic's different. All of a sudden, all eyes are on him. He's got to live up to a standard. Whereas now, he won't be it won't be frowned upon if he fails to get back up to first, second, third.
Well, nothing short of what you'd have expected from Stella Holmgren in the prone position, but matching him is Jesper Nylén on the second leg for Sweden. And here are the standings as they come out of shooting 3. So it's 8 shooting stages in total.
Still, Ellen, it's really close up there at the front. Lots of teams all within 12 seconds, all the way down to Birkentals of Latvia, who still managing to stay in touch of the leaders. And that's it's quite rare at this point, and I imagine we'll see this spread out a lot before the race is done. But fantastic for the Germans that they are still very much up there and in contention, and the home audience is going to be pleased about that for sure.
And of course they provide a huge boost to the German team. It's Danilo Liedmüller who's on this second leg for Germany. And here are the chasing duo with Oscar Lombardo and Simon Eder. Front pack go through the 11.12 kilometre mark. We flip to one side from Jesper Nylén.
Lovely driving technique there from Lombardo. A little skip off his left leg onto his poles taking the brunt, or the majority of his body weight, so he can use his upper body to leverage his way up the hill.
And they have been joined though by Jonas Maleček of Czechia. 10th in the sprint in Antolz last season. That's his personal best, and he'll obviously take confidence from that heading towards the Olympic Games. Czechia, of course, a team that regularly performs so well in the mixed relay, and the women kicking off the season with a bronze medal in Östersund in the women's relay. New podium for the Czech men, though, since Sochi in the 2012-2013 season.
Just for some context on the speed, Dali Shevdal completed his last lap in 4 minutes and 49 seconds. Of course, that's into the finish line, which is slightly different. But the speed of the last leg the fastest time in the last leg was actually Birkenthal's of Latvia, 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Legride 6 seconds down off his pace.
And of course, as introduced last season, extra prize money for the fastest time on each leg. There's a group of 11 travelling through the 11.8 kilometre mark. Sturla Holmlegreid at the front, Miettinen of Finland, putting himself at the back of this pack with Lombardo, Ada and Malacek, the chasing three. They found themselves within 25 seconds of the leader, Sturla Holmlegreid.
Yeah, you guys had to make the last move.
Well, he couldn't have asked for more. Braunhofer and now Lucas Hofer holding a good position, Scott, you have to say.
It certainly is, and actually I'm quite surprised that many of these nations do still be up there and in contention. Of course, Germain of USA, that doesn't surprise me at all. We saw some brilliant things from him in Östersund, where his form really was at the top of his game. And Legride probably benefiting a little bit from a slightly more relaxed pace as he eases his way back into racing.
A beautiful shot of the Moravian Mountains as Sturla Holmlegreid brings this leading 11 into the range for the final time on this leg. Lucas Hofer starting quickly. Miss now for Italy. Switzerland with a miss. 2 misses for Slovenia. Bulgaria, Norway have a miss. Sturla Holmlegreid will have to go into the extra rounds. Germany away. Hear the roar of Ruhpolding. Danilo Riekmuller will take the lead. Norway not too far behind with Sturla Holmlegreid and continuing to move incredibly well is the Estonian team, Kallisto Seema now, but look at their shooting record.
Wow, absolutely phenomenal shooting. Lombardo doing such a great job, really taking advantage of the lack of pressure for his leg. But now, Jesper Nelin is struggling. The teams are out, they're making ground, and even though he did get the last shot, it puts a lot of work on Martin Ponsiluoma's shoulders and Sebastian Samuelsson's shoulders to come back. And it all happened in just a matter of moments, that he went from being right up there with the lead pack to being 35 seconds down off the lead. Such incredible accuracy when there's tens of thousands cheering after every single shot, but the Germans train for that. They actually use amplifier speakers to simulate the sound of the crowd for every hit, for every miss, somebody standing on a mix board pressing the sound. So they're well acquainted to what the noise sounds like, but there's a different energy, the vibration of tens of thousands of people cheering after every shot that makes it even more challenging to withstand or to overcome mentally, and Reitmuller absolutely nailed it in that last 5 shots in stand.
And it has split Our leading group, which was 11, tightly packed together coming into shooting 4. And it is Danilo Ruhpolding of Germany who leads the way and is being urged home. All the German fans who would love to see Germany on the podium in the men's relay for the first time this season. And what a place it would be to do it. But he's chased by the reigning total score champion in Sturla Holmlegard, who's come back into the action, clearly hungry ahead of the Olympic Games. Christo Sima continuing to be up there as well. An excellent shooting day from him and from the Estonian team as a whole today, performing incredibly well. And the USA up into 4th with Maxime Germain. They were 4th in Hochfilzen. That's the 3rd time that they'd equalled their 2nd best result. And we'd love to push on from that today. Schomer on the 3rd leg for the USA, of course, before Campbell Wright will anchor the ship for the USA.
And Lombardo, they're opening a gap over Jesper Nelin, who is going to have to do a lot of work to get on the back of the French, just so that Ponsaloma is able to stay with Quentin Fillon-Maillet. They're both leg 3. And Martin Ponsaloma, he needs to get the targets down, particularly in stand, and therefore can't afford to be trying to claw back extra seconds on Quentin Fillon-Maillet on lap 1 of his leg, and therefore making it harder to get the stand targets down later in the race.
And of course, with Martin Ponsaloma, it continues to be such an interesting case when you look at his shooting percentages. An overall improvement in accuracy this season in comparison to what we saw last season, but that all thanks to the prone shooting as he continues to struggle so considerably with the standing shooting, and so consistently we see those struggles. But of course, he is one of the fastest on the skis as Danilo Ruhpolding through 14.3 kilometres, followed by Lukas Hofer, but he does have almost a 5-second advantage over the Italian.
And what a day this would be for Germany if they could maintain this lead, which they have earned, and claiming a victory here. In the last 10 relays, Germany hasn't actually had a victory. They've had 5 times second and 2 times third. David Zobel, he is and has been in good form throughout the season.
Around the bends they come, and it's Danilo Ruhpolding who will lead into the exchange, much to the delight of the home fans in the grandstand here in Ruhpolding. David Zobel will be the man to pick up the baton, and Philip Navrak, who claimed his 5th World Cup podium in the sprint last week in Oberhof, will be on the final leg. As it is Germany who hand over ahead of Switzerland, with Nicholas Hartweg doing an exceptional job to get his team up. We know exactly what he can do on the skis, and another prime example of it there. Italy in 3rd, Estonia holding 4th, Norway in 5th, USA dropping down to 6th. And a collision between 2 of the Finns, which I think has resulted there in what looked to be a broken pole, Scott.
Yeah, the teams do have spare poles waiting for that scenario just outside of the handover zone, so somebody will be able to get a spare pole to the athletes if it's necessary. It's never desirable, that's for sure, but the teams are ready for the worst case scenario in that instance.
Now you have to give a word to the final lap of Nicholas Hartweg as he hands over to Finello of Switzerland, closing so quickly. So lap after lap, we seem to lose another team off the back of what was once an incredibly large group through the opening stages of this race. Second of the weekend here in Ruhpolding. And we're now down to just 6 And Switzerland, USA, Germany.
Now this is the moment in the race where many of the teams, or many of the athletes such as Markus Keva of Estonia, are really going to experience a unique challenge being right up there at the front, despite the fact that he's never really penetrated, or never actually penetrated the top 30 on the World Cup. This year his best result was 34th in Östersund, and that was in the individual. So a very unique opportunity for Keva to try and maintain the speed. Now, these are the fearsome comeback teams. I think Sweden and France are going to be working together to some extent, or inadvertently working together to close down that gap. We can certainly expect both of those teams to make it right back up there into the top 5, either on this leg or the next. And teams like USA, Switzerland, Estonia, Latvia, Bulgaria, who are doing fantastic at this point, those are the ones that we can expect to see drop down the order.
And a debrief from Stella Holmlagreid. Martin Uldal sat in 3rd. As we look further back on the chase, which is on, Martin Ponsaloma and Quentin Fillon-Maillet of France.
And you can see now that Ponsaloma has decided to take the lead. They're working again side by side, or taking it in turns to go in front. And Ponsaloma, being one of the fastest in the whole field, alongside Dali Shefdal, alongside Sebastian Salmason, is absolutely capable of getting back up there. But Uldal making a move with his quick skis, just gliding past David Zobel of Germany.
And of course, Martin Uldal, an athlete who's in such excellent form this season, 3 solo silver medals. In addition, of course, to his win in Tigre Bonbonard last season. His only win on the World Cup, but you feel, when you look at his record, he's not too far away from claiming another gold medal on the World Cup. And it will be the Norwegian who leads as they come into the range. Uldal, Zobel, tucked in behind with Jeremy Pinello, side by side with Elia Zani of Italy. And Martin Uldal leading the way in terms of the prone shooting hit rates. You mentioned 2 of the names in this leading pack of 6 Scott, who maybe not as popular for the podium, but Mark Keva of Estonia and Paul Schomer of the USA, also with incredibly good records, but it is the German David Zobel is flying through the shots. Schomer there as well, and it will be a perfect 5 for 5 for Paul Schomer of the USA, who will lead coming out of shooting 5 of 8 with Campbell right on the final leg.
Wow, now that is really, certainly has good implications for Team USA. Campbell Wright, of course, being up there with the best among them, is capable of taking a win, but with an advantage that Paul Schomer could potentially maintain, or at least be up there with Uldal. Is going to be a really exciting last leg.
The shooting of Austria, and Hassinger. But it is the USA who lead coming out of shooting 5. No relay wins on the World Cup, but they were third here in the 87-88 season. Watching the shooting of Martin Oldal. We'll hand over to Vetle Sjåstad Christensen. And well, the Norwegians happy with that, but trailing by just 1.5 seconds as they came out of the range, thanks to the expert shooting of that man who's in excellent form, Paul Schomer. Won all 3 of the selection races for the US national team. To his second Olympic Games after a couple of seasons that have been hit by injury. That's it. Quite incredibly hard to return to the top level of racing. Had an excellent season on the IBU Cup. Around the turn of last season, some really important results, finding himself on the podium before being called back up into the World Cups, into the World Cup team for the USA. So through the 18.7 kilometre mark, Martin Oldal leads. Paul Schomer of the USA, Jeremy Finello in third for Switzerland. We've seen the same 3 podium for all the races so far this season. Will this change today? A thrilling final leg on the way. Of course, one more shooting stage, the standing shoot for these athletes on leg number 3. Filme finding his way up into 8th. Ponsaloma in 9th there. 11.2 and 12.5 seconds off the pace of Martin Oldal respectively. And still 13 teams within 35 seconds. Final preparations for Vetle Sjåstad Christensen. 7th, he finds himself in the total score standings. And of course, that incredibly impressive victory in the sprint in Annecy Le Grand Bernard, finishing then in 3rd in the mass start that weekend. Part of the team that won the Olympic gold medal. They go into battle to defend it this time round, of course, without the Bull brothers. A Norwegian team that is still full of talent and yet to be beaten on the World Cup this season. Martin Oldal taking the train of 11 through 19.3 kilometres. Just 16.3 seconds separate Norway and Latvia. Well, Scott, it's Martin Oldal who leads the way for Norway, but when you look over his shoulder, a train of nations who, you said it's so hard to predict these relays. Would you have had Switzerland and the USA up there at this point in the race?
Well, Switzerland are certainly capable of it. USA are also capable of it. It's just at this point, if these nations get to this stage, you would expect them then to struggle to maintain it for the last leg. But Campbell Wright is certainly able to not just maintain it, but win from this point.
What position will he be handed over to in? The deep breaths of Paul Schomer just over the shoulder of Finello. He has the second best standing shooting hit rate amongst the field, and the best in, second best in this group as Kenton Fiormaillet now well within the mix. It's a miss for Norway and Martin Oldal, a miss for Switzerland. France have a miss as well. Schomer now with a miss. Bulgaria and Germany flying, and it will be Sweden who will emerge in the lead. Bulgaria there by their side. And how things can change in the blink of an eye. Ponsaloma leading, coming out of shooting 6. David Zobel down in 3rd. Vasilev of Bulgaria sat in 2nd. Kenton Fiormaillet now up to 4th. Martin Oldal falling down to 6th. So the big winner coming out of shooting 6, one of them being David Zobel, who sees Germany up to 3rd. Paul Schomer now emerging from the penalty loop. And it is the USA who find themselves down in 13th, 48 seconds off the pace of Martin Ponsaloma. The standing shooting that he would have liked, but still just 10 seconds separating Martin Oldal and Martin Ponsaloma. Apologies, we're experiencing some technical difficulties as this men's relay continues here in Ruhpolding. And no surprise to see Martin Ponsaloma turning up the pace. And it is the Swede who leads. We'll find out how much by as he comes through the 21.2 kilometre mark. It's David Zobel who is chasing. And it is a 6.2 second advantage that Martin Ponsaloma has been able to open up. They were almost neck and neck as they left the shooting range. He was just edging it ahead of the Bulgarian team. And I'm surprised to see the man who's one of the fastest on the circuit on the skis pulling away for Sweden. Sebastian Samuelsson, who has made an excellent start to this season, is on the final leg for the Swedes, who have finished 3rd in all 3 races so far this season. Could that be about to change today? Well, Scots, great to have you back. No surprise to see Martin Ponsaloma having got through the shooting with Sweden leading coming out of shooting 6. This is exactly what he would want to do, and the position that Sebastian Samuelsson will want to see him in as he prepares to make his way out onto the course.
Yeah, for sure, and such an amazing shooting performance from Ponsaloma. Extremely unexpected. Standing is not his friend usually, so the fact that he was able to come into the range with a deficit of only 3 seconds, granted, but then to lead is something that for Ponsaloma is rare, but fantastic, and puts Sebastian Samuelsson in a great position to take what could be a victory for Sweden, first of them this entire Olympic race season.
And here comes Martin Oldal, who has forced his way from 6th, leaving the range, up into 2nd. David Zobel in 3rd. Konstantin Vasilev of Bulgaria in 4th. But it is out front Martin Ponsaloma, who has struggled for results over the course of the last couple of seasons, but particularly last season.
Vasilev, only 22 years of age, and what a fantastic job he's done to get him and his team into 4th place at this most pivotal part of the race. But now for Bulgaria, one of the big priorities will be staying inside the course so that they don't get disqualified again. But what a redemption story for the Bulgarians.
Well, he came out with a point to prove, didn't they, the Bulgarians, after disqualification last weekend in Oberhof. And it is Vasilev, a 22-year-old, who will hand over as nations rally behind him, including France. It will be Sweden who hand over first, and it's Sebastian Samuelsson who makes his way out onto the course with a 4.6-second lead over Norway. And Vetle Sjostad Christensen on this final leg. Eric Perrault picks up the baton for France. Jakob Kulben of Estonia finds himself in 6th. And here is the exchange of the Italians in 7th. Romanen on this final leg. This only his 2nd World Cup start and his first since the sprint in Oslo at the end of last season. 31-year-old. Well, 20 seconds, Scott, between 1st and 7th as they come through the final exchange. This really could go anyway.
It certainly could, and we still have some big names. United States, unfortunately, now 53 seconds back. Campbell Wright would be doing extremely well to reclaim even half of that on some of those top nations up at the sharp end of the field. But with Sebastian Samuelsson up at the front, it's going to be a really interesting competition to see how he fares against the Norwegians.
Well, they spent a lot of the early laps of the 3rd leg together. Kenton Fiormaillet and Martin Ponsaloma. But it is the Swedes who hand over with the advantage going into the final leg.
And of these, or of this trio, Vetle Sjostad Christensen really has one of the most brilliant tactical abilities, which was on full display in Oberhof just last week, when he had a decision to make whether he was going to lead the race and stepping to the side to allow others to come through. And he really is playing this game of being willing to stop, to literally stop during the middle of a race to allow those other athletes to take the lead. And that sort of gameplay really can get in the minds of other biathletes.
Well, no surprise to see Martin Ponsaloma as the fastest on leg 3 by 7.5 seconds over Kenton Fiormaillet. And his teammate and close friend Sebastian Samuelsson leads Sweden. And the pack of 5 through 23.7 kilometres.
And wow, going so slowly, really there from Sebastian Samuelsson, just cruising up the hill and almost having a conversation because he was going so slow. Christensen loving it. It's right in his wheelhouse to be playing these mind games at this point, but the slower they go, the more they invite other nations to close that gap and be in contention with doing incredibly well on the shooting range. Campbell Wright will be loving this as the gap closes for him.
And Campbell Wright has just come through the 23.7 kilometre mark. He finds himself 52.7 seconds behind the time of the leader Sebastian Samuelsson.
Wow.
Well, what is going on here, Scott?
This is brilliant. This is so brilliant. Each one of these biathletes in a one prone and one stand and sprint finish scenario knows that they are among the best. So the risk of being taken in by other nations isn't so huge, although not insignificant. None of them want to take the lead and put in that extra effort, and so are inviting others to do it. And when they refuse, it becomes almost like a game of pride, where it's like, well, now I've decided I'm going to be stubborn. If I break first, then it's in some way a weakness. So there's a little bit of psychological play going on, but Christensen really is, or typically, an instigator, and others are cued into that and are deciding to play some mind games back.
Well, one team you imagine who won't be playing mind games and do have the pride of this being home snow is Germany. So no surprise maybe to see Philipp Navrat be the athlete who doesn't want to mess around as such and is quite happy and content to take on the lead, as now, well, it's Eric Perrault who's first into the tracks.
Well, of these racers, Philipp Navrat is one of the last who actually had a victory in a race. So, you know, in terms of current form, he can see himself as being one of the best seeded amongst them.
Messing about from Eric Perrault. Wants to see France back on top after the exceptional season they had in 24-25, unbeaten on the World Cup. They haven't started with the same manner in the 25-26 season. It's all been Norway. Can they change the record back into the favour of France ahead of the Olympic Games today?
Such a good opportunity for Jakob Kulbin of Estonia now. He's basically just had an easy ride around that whole leg, and that increases his chances of being able to follow with an increased ski speed on further loops.
Well, one of the big winners from the messing about on that first lap, Campbell Wright, now only 39.3 seconds behind the time of this leading six, who dropped down into the prone position for the penultimate shooting stage of this men's relay. Philipp Navrat with the best accuracy amongst this leading pack. It's a miss for Sebastian Samuelsson. Navrat now with a miss. France still perfect, as are Norway. And it will be Norway who emerge alongside France in the lead.
And now we're really going to see the pace stepping up for Germany, and so the Navrat and also Christensen, who will seize the opportunity to make Sebastian Samuelsson work very, very hard if he wants to close down any of those seconds lost.
Campbell Wright, you can just make out his hair there sticking out the top of the headband. It will be one miss from the American, which won't help his efforts trying to find his way onto the leading group.
Well, and Krichmar as well of Czechia doing a fantastic job. 41 seconds back as he came into the shooting range and seizing the opportunity. That's, I think, the important thing for those other biathletes. And Campbell Wright now 52 seconds behind, so not actually managing to close the gap. He's lost time, 12 seconds from when he entered the range to when he left.
Yeah, so the majority of the time that he had eaten into has disappeared very quickly indeed. Eric Perrault leading, coming out, well, I say leading, level on time with Vetle Sjostad Christensen as they left shooting 7. One more visit to the range to go, and it is France and Norway. They're in the battle, but not too far behind. Philipp Navrat looking to put Germany on the podium for the first time this season.
Well, that's 6.8 seconds that Sebastian Samuelsson is behind. It really does matter, because at this point he has a choice. He either closes that gap, something he's capable of doing, but it's going to cost in the shooting range when his legs are feeling heavier than the likes of Christensen up at the front, who's going to make him work for every single meter that he closes. And so it's a decision that, does Sebastian Samuelsson play his own race, or does he try and link on to the leaders? And at this point right now, it might just be too desirable for Sebastian Samuelsson to resist, trying to close that gap.
A reminder in this Norwegian team, no Johan Olav Botten. He continues to recover from illness as Eric Perrault leads through 26.2 kilometres. Vetle Sjostad Christensen, well, really has been a season with the eyes on Botten, but also you have to say Dale Skjevdal and Vetle Sjostad Christensen, plenty of hype around this Norwegian squad and who may take over the baton from the Bø brothers, and it has been the two more experienced names in Dale Skjevdal and Christensen who have really stepped up into the gap left by the Bø brothers.
I love it there. Eric Perrault at the top of the hill deciding that he isn't content with allowing that pace to settle again, because Christensen once again started to be a bit more relaxed, playing tactics, and the gap now closed. Christensen still not at the front. He is playing tactics, but that is what relays are. They are heavily mind games, heavily psychological, and Christensen has so many of the last legs and relays under his belt.
Well, he knows how to play the game, Vetle Sjostad Christensen. And is sat in second as Eric Perrault glides away.
You can see that pace right there is not dynamic. They are really taking a lot of risk. I think they look side by side, they think, okay, yeah, we're the top 4. There's no Italy here, there's no Giacomel, there's no Campbell Wright, so it's going to be amongst us. Why should we push ourselves too hard at this point? And I think the answer to that question is I'm really not sure. It's very much that Christensen is allowing others to lead and almost just refusing to be up there himself, taking any of the pace or the wind at the front.
We have to look not too far behind as well. Jakob Corbin still there at the last time check, 9.5 seconds behind Sebastian Samuelsson. Just popping back, is that Christensen, who's just slightly off the pace, and it is the Norwegian. To check his footing slightly.
He's just advertising himself as absolutely unwilling to go up to the front. There's nothing else other than that's all he is communicating with that, and it's fascinating. This makes for just one of the most interesting dynamics leading into the last shooting of this relay race here in Ruhpolding, where it's almost become just a pure shooting race. The last 5 stand targets is all that matters for these 4 biathletes up at the front, and Corbin with an opportunity to do something special.
Well, they've never finished on the podium, Estonia. The best finish is 5th, which they've achieved 3 times, and look set to achieve once again, or maybe even better, as they come into the range for one final time. 5 athletes separated by 7 seconds. Sweden, France, Germany and Norway now joined by Estonia. Quick start from Perrault, a miss from Sebastian Samuelsson, and Eric Perrault is away. Norway with a miss, Germany with a miss. And this is France's race, and it's Eric Perrault's.
Wow, Christensen taking a lifetime to get that spare round down, is going to come out just ahead of Sebastian Samuelsson. But Eric Perrault seizing the opportunity there and getting all those targets down in beautiful fashion. But Christensen, for all the games played on that last lap, did not pay off to the extent that he would have been hoping to maintain Norway's dominance at the top of the relay leaderboard.
Well, it's a perfect position for France now, and perfect in the range from Eric Perrault, who leads by 7.8 seconds coming out of the range. It's Philip Navrat who is in second. How much of a challenge, Scott, will he have to keep hold of the podium positions here, Navrat, with Christensen and Samuelsson rallying from behind?
Oh, it would be devastating if Germany was to be deposed at this stage, but I have to say it's really going to be a tough battle. I think the Germans made the right decision to put Philip Navrat on the last leg, as just Estrello, just in Oberhof really struggling in front or for that final lap when 5 teams were all in contention for the win. And then of course Germany not making the podium on that case. So a lot of pressure now in Navrat's shoulders.
Well, it's a comfortable gap to those behind. You can see there between Kolbin and Klichmar of Czechia. And the last time that Estonia finished in the top 5 of a men's relay was in Oberhof in January of 2003, when they finished 5th. So equaling their best result today, and doing so for the first time in over 2 decades.
And now you can see the gap. leading into one of the steepest hills that remain that separates them until the finish line, and Christensen making a move, going straight past Navrath on the right-hand side of your screen and really attacking. It's still all to play for, but I think Eric Perrault has just enough time now with 7.1 seconds ahead of Christensen, and he's really going to struggle to close that gap.
But it is not over yet. Eric Perrault leading from Vetle Sjorsgaard Christensen, who's moved up into second, Navrat in third, Samuelsson in fourth, Jakob Kolben of Estonia down in fifth. An excellent shooting day from the Estonians as a team, and it's put them in an incredible position here to equal their best ever result on a World Cup men's relay. But it is Perrault out front for France, who have failed to stand atop the podium so far this season. Now this is a telling turn as well, because as they make their way around that teardrop-shaped corner, Eric Perrault will know just exactly the lead that he has over Christensen, whose games early on in the leg have cost him, and of course the Norwegian team as well. Navrat still holding on to third. Here's Samuelsson making his way down the descent.
A little bit of a slip there from Eric Perrault, just reminding us that anything can happen at any point in these races when the conditions are a little bit sketchy. But Navrath is not giving up. He's still managing to stay connected to Christensen, who now appears to have settled for a silver or second position in today's race, not trying to chase Eric Perrault at this late stage.
Now the wait continues at the finish line. Sebastian Samuelsson and Sweden just off the podium as things stand. And it is a hungry German team ahead of them, who will not want to give up the opportunity to stand on the podium on home snow. And they're not giving up the opportunity of a silver medal here either. Navrat in pursuit of Christensen.
Really needing to get into his slipstream. Christensen, he is very strong tactically, but also very strong physically in the last 200 meters. He is the best among them. Navrat, his only hope is to get right in, tucked in behind Christensen, and then try and pull around the side in the final 20, 30, 40 meters.
France are back on top for the first time this season. It is victory for France. And for the first time this season, it won't be gold for Norway. Second, as Germany take a much-deserved medal, bronze for the German quartet. And an incredible job done on the final leg from Philip Navrat to secure his team the medal. Samuelsson across the line can't keep up the medal streak for Sweden. But it's a historic day for Estonia, as Jakob Kolben across the line, equaling their best finish for the first time in over 2 decades. 2003, the last time they finished in the top 5, and they have matched the best in the world once again. Not to be for the USA, who would have been eyeing up that 5th position and maybe even higher from themselves. Challenges on the penultimate leg to give the launch pad to Campbell Wright that he would have wanted. It's 8th today for the United States of America, followed home by the Italians.
And still among those who have finished, Eric Perrault with the fastest time on leg 4. Christensen 9 seconds down. So that was even with those tactical games on the skis that they were playing, still performing to an incredibly high standard.
Well, we saw the look of relief on the face of Jakob Kolben there. Talk about holding your nerve. Just 20 years old. His personal best set this season, 12th in the individual competition in Östersund. and anchoring Estonia to a record equaling 5th place today. Delight for the Germans on the podium once again here in Ruhpolding. And victory for France, just the second time that Oscar Lombardo has been part of a winning French relay team. And victory for the first time this season.
And so good for Germany to achieve a podium when they've struggled recently. In Oberhof and Hochfilzen, in 5th place in both those occasions, and then in the earlier season, Östersund, they were 4th. And then Nova Mesto World Cup, they were 4th again. So the last time they were on the podium before today was in Lenzerheide at the World Championships.
Well, Eric Perrault, such a steady hand to anchor the French team.
I do wonder if Christensen perhaps is not in his best form right now. Perhaps he had heavy legs, and because of his dominance and his strength on the last leg, it may have just been the case that others were quite happy with him taking control and his relaxation, making them relax, but not so relaxed that anybody else really penetrated their times. So Campbell Wright was the 4th fastest on that last leg, still 20 seconds behind Perrault, 10 seconds behind Christensen. So although tactical, still incredibly fast. Kazakhstan obviously had a really wonderful start to the race, but now Kurales coming across the line, 18th place, in behind Ukraine. Only 8 spares used, no penalty loops. So that 4 minutes and 10 seconds lost was as a result of slower skiing and approximately 10 seconds for every spare round that's loaded into the chamber.
Claude bringing it home for Belgium, who finished 19th. Well, it means a lot to Eric Perrault, who for the first time anchors France to a men's relay victory. After failing to win on the World Cup for all of last season, Scott, the Norwegians are always going to want to start off this season and put the record straight. 3 wins on the bounce. They can't make it a clean sweep before the Olympic Games, and it's France who will look to carry that momentum into Antholz.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge confidence builder, not just for the French team in general, but for Oscar Lombardo, who was drafted in pretty much last minute and was able to do such a good job for his team that, you know, perhaps Emilia Jacquelin will be watching on nervously.
Connolly over the line for Canada.
A relief for the Germans after such a long time, at least in relay terms, to make it onto the podium, and what better a crowd to manage it in front of. Eric Perrault really being such a cool-headed biathlete at the end of the, or at least that's one of his strengths, is being able to maintain his composure in the shooting range, and the tactics playing into his hand as Moldova, they come across the line.
So these are the unofficial results. France taking victory for the first time this season and anchored in a victory for the first time by Eric Perrault. Norway having to settle for second. Germany holding strong for third on home snow. Sweden didn't quite have the legs in Sebastian Samuelsson that they needed to close the gap at the end, and a record equaling day for Estonia. And the quartet of Crystal Sima, Mark Koskieva and Jakob Kolbin, expertly anchored by the 20-year-old, who is beginning to really look like one to watch on the World Cup as he heads closer and closer to his first top 10 finish. And well, Scott, looking into the rest of the week, that is a huge confidence boost for the Estonian youngster to take forward.
It is, and the Estonian team in general, to know that they have the depth of field to stay with the big nations, the top nations, the ones that repeatedly are up there. That's a huge point of encouragement just a matter of weeks before the Olympic Winter Games. But of course, with confidence comes caution, because sometimes it can be your worst enemy to think, well, actually, if we can do it now, then we can replicate that at the Games. And that thought alone can really undermine the performances of some of the biathletes who then have expectation on their shoulder, whereas before they did not.
Eric, congratulations. That was just one huge fight, such an exciting competition, and finally a win for your team this season. How was it?
That's so good to win with the team. For me, it's so important, and my teammate did a great job, and I was in the front to have a chance, and I love till the last shooting. So I really enjoyed my shoot, and also the last round I knew I had everything I needed to push enough to stay in the front. Of course, I knew that big guys wanted to catch me, but I'm really happy that I did, and especially for the team, because it's not about what I did today, it's about what we did together.
But your final shooting, that was just something amazing, so fast. You were not afraid, you were confident that you will close everything, or you were just taking it all?
No, I was really confident on my shooting, and we are never sure to be shooting every target, but I was focusing only on that point. To be shooting fast was a consequence, and not the whole point. So I'm really happy that I did both.
You really did. Congrats again.
Thank you so much.
Well, Scott, the men's relays this season, the four of them have really thrown up a mixed bag every single time. I mean, the results have always been the same until today, where it's France who stand atop the podium. But we have had France being 43.1 seconds behind Norway and Hochfilzen. It was closer on the opening weekend Norway still beating France in Östersund, and then we had the closest relay in recorded history in Oberhof last weekend, and then a battle all the way to the line once again, all the way around the final lap, with interesting tactics to say the least. It's great preparation going into the Olympic Games, the fact that there has been such variety in terms of the races that we've seen in the relays.
It is absolutely fantastic, and it's so exciting that the door is open for anybody to get there if they're close enough, as we saw today. It could have gone any of 4 ways, possibly 5, but I think that's a much less likely scenario. And that possibility, the same like it was in Oberhof, is really what's going to make getting that Olympic gold medal even more exciting, because the dynamics, the pressure will be all the greater coming into the last stand shoot.
So here's the updated Men's Nation Cup score. Norway leading the way from France, Sweden in 3rd, Germany in 4th. Great to see a handful of Estonian flags in the crowd there, just in the background. And what a day it was for the Estonians as they edge closer and closer. Of course, the Olympic Games, the next big event on the biathlon calendar, but next season Otepää will host the World Championships. And of course, the Estonians will want to be in best form going into that competition. Martin Oldal showing some good form himself today.
Great effort from the French team to recover from that early penalty loop from Fabien Claude, after which point there was only 1 spare round used throughout the entirety of the race for the French, outside of the somewhat disastrous initial shoot from Claude.
And it is a shake of the head and a fair few nods in there as well, as Fabien Claude debriefs from his shooting, and of course mentioning the role there of the athletes after him, including Oscar Lombardo, and just his second today relay win with France to get them back up the order. Sweden, of course, one of the other teams who had to fight from behind, unable today to find their way onto the podium.
Dan Shevdal working so hard on that last leg to make up for his lost time. Handing over with still plenty time for Legride to close the gap and do what he does best, shoot accurately, ski fast. It does make me wonder, Christensen and allowing the other athletes to go by and to be so settled and calm on the last lap, to what extent is that benefiting his results, and to what extent does that just enable others to be in with a chance of claiming a victory? It's hard to know, and the Norwegian teams will certainly be discussing it. Getting his targets down in just 17 seconds for the final stand shoot. Brandt will be a little frustrated that he did the perfect job that he could have done really couldn't have been a whole lot better. And then for his team to have the worst relay result of the season. Sweden now finishing today in 4th. That will be frustrating.
Well, cupping his ear in celebration, Eric Perrault. The first time he has anchored France to a victory in the men's relay on the World Cup. As the preparations already begin, I'm sure the cats are in perfect condition for tomorrow's racing, which is the women's sprint. The men's follows on Saturday before back-to-back pursuits on Sunday. Third place today, but the loudest roar for Germany. Back on the podium for the first time since their bronze medal at the World Championships in Lenzerheide. The quartet of Justus Strelo, Danilo Littmola, David Zobel and Philip Navlat. Second place, Norway have to settle for today. Johannes Dale Skjevdal leading them out. Sturla Holmlegreid back in action after illness saw him out of Oberhof. Martin Uldal taking on the penultimate leg. And Vetle Sjolstad Christensen bringing them home. First time that they finish off top spot this season. A relief on the face of Fabien Claude. Once around the penalty loop he went, and after that France were almost perfect. A late call-up of Oscar Lombardo on the second leg. Emilien Jacquelin missing out through what we believe is a fever. Hope to see him later on in the week. Of course, the men back in action on Saturday. Kenton Fiormaillet took on the penultimate leg before Eric Perrault brought it home for the first time in a French victory in the World Cup and a first French win of the season in the last men's relay before the Olympic Games.
It's nice to see that France can do it even with a penalty loop. But a penalty loop is something that's become a little bit of a habit for the French team of late. Something they really want to eliminate come the Olympics.
Eric Perrault will be hoping that that's not the last Peppo, the Biathlon Fox, that he'll be receiving this weekend here in Ruhpolding. And those fans will be hoping for more of the same as well from the French team as we move into the individual races. Back on top spot, gold hung around their necks today. France victorious for the first time this season in the men's relay. Norway settling for second, and a brilliant bronze for Germany in Ruhpolding. And that is how the team action concludes for the first 2 days here in Ruhpolding. We will be back tomorrow afternoon with the women's sprint kicking off at 2:30 Central European time. And of course, as always, we hope you can join us then here on Eurovision Sport.
Allocation now from the World Championships 2011 in Hanti-Mansisk. Dear Luki Hofer, it has been a long journey, but you will soon get your well-deserved silver medal from the mass start World Championships 2011. All about the Russian doping scandals. In 2020, a Russian athlete, Justikov, was banned 4 years in relation to his athlete blood pass. And all results from January 2010 to the end of the season 2013-14 was disqualified, both individual and the relays he took part in. This was appealed to the CAS and Swiss Federal Tribunal, but rejected, and from May 2025, this is legally binding. So, after that, a lot of results, including prize money, has been recalculated. I'm now traveling to World Cups and handing over medals to the athletes who well earned them, and at the Olympic Games in Milano Cortina, there will be a separate ceremony for the Olympic medals. This is also a victory for IBU, and not at least for me personally. The journey IBU has done in good governance and clean sport since 2018 started even 2 years earlier. Thanks a lot. Now to the winner of the silver medal mass start at World Championships 2011 in Hanti-Mansisk. Dear Luki, I will now hand over to you the well-earned silver medal for the mass start World Championships 2011. Sorry for the 15 years delay, but good governance has won. Congratulations, give him a big hand.
Ja, und des Weiteren gratulieren der Lukas Hofer den anderen Mannschaften. Luki, wir reden schon miteinander. Danke, du hast der Ruhpolding ausgesucht für diese Ehrung. Warum das?
Ja, Ruhpolding ist jetzt mittlerweile seit 2 Jahren fast so wie ein zweites daheim. Meine Family ist auch da und ich glaube, ich habe viele Erinnerungen an da und deswegen war es auch der richtige Ort.
Ich muss da noch ein bisschen was zu dem Bären sagen. Da steht herzlichen Dank drauf. Das ist von unserem Team Rahmenprogramm, weil wir uns gedacht haben, naja gut, wenn man Jahrzehnte später Dankeschön sagen kann, dann können wir das auch machen. Du hast uns 2013 bei den Nachtrennen vorne im Champions Park ausgeholfen. Da haben wir so ein Couchgespräch gemacht, damit der Champions Park ein bisschen belebt wird und wir keine Deutschen mehr da waren, hat der Paulo willig gesagt, nehmt einen Hofer, Luki. Kannst du dich auch nicht mehr daran erinnern, gell?
Das ist jetzt schon ein bisschen lange her. Aber ich bin meistens für Plätze nicht mehr zu haben, deswegen.
Das stimmt, wir haben da so quer über die Dinge Laserschießen gemacht. Das war alles recht lustig. Wie ist das jetzt so meint, die WM ist weit weg. Aus Bronze wird Silber. Wie nimmst du das auf?
Ja, ich sag so, ich war Dritter, ich habe die Preisverteilung miterleben dürfen, aber natürlich, das ist jetzt auch speziell, weil das Zeug von der IBU, wie noch gegen das Doping und alles gekämpft wird, und ich glaube, das ist das Wichtige, was man das Signal rausschicken kann.
Ich habe noch einen. Christoph, gehen wir mal rüber. Bevor das da in eine totale Feierei ausartet, komm rüber zu mir. Das sind Füchse. Conny, du kriegst auch noch was. Wie ist das jetzt so nach Jahren, wenn man da immer in der Rangliste noch weiter nach vorn rückt?
Ja, das ist großartig. Ich habe sehr, sehr lange warten müssen, rückblickend auf 2010. Aber ich spekuliere immer noch auf eine Sommer-Olympiamedaille.
Im Schwimmen?
Im Weitspringen.
Womöglich noch Dreisprung, oder? Ich habe ja gesagt, weißt du musst ein paar Leute dazuholen, damit es dann auch ein bisschen lustig wird. Weil anstrengend waren es die Jahre vorher ja auf alle Fälle. Hast du noch Erinnerungen an das Rennen?
Ja, das ist ja auch sehr speziell. Da waren viele Namen noch dabei, gegen die ich gelaufen bin, gegen den Kollegen da auch noch. Aber es war richtig geil einmal als Junger, da war ich noch 22 Jahre, vorne mit dabei zu laufen.
Du hast, glaube ich, einen ganzen Kristallpokal noch gekriegt, oder wie war das bei dir?
Ja, mit dem habe ich gar nicht mehr gerechnet. Ziemlich überrascht gewesen von der IBU, ein E-Mail, quasi, ich kriege jetzt die Massenstartkugel für 2010, noch 2009, 2010 überreicht, gar nicht gewusst, dass es den nur zum Geben gibt.
Ja. Da musst du schon aufpassen, gut, dass wir schon seit Ende der 70er in Ruhpolding Biathlon machen, weil sonst war das komplett weg. Welchen Ort hast du dir ausgesucht zur Übergabe?
Ja, ursprünglich die Vereinstennismeisterschaft daheim, aber das war zu kurzfristig. Ich habe sie in Hochfilzen überreicht gekriegt.
Ja, da haben wir es. War aber keine internationale Vereinsmeisterschaft, oder? Weil sonst dann da die nächste so mit antreten.
Nein, war intern. Aber ist doch schön. Und noch einmal, so wie der Luki gesagt hat, ich bin sehr dankbar. Das ist, glaube ich, auch sehr, sehr wichtig, dass die IBU das auch über Jahre hinweg verfolgt und nicht aufgeben hat auf halber Strecke, weil es ja doch viele, viele Berufungen geben und dass sie langen Atem bewiesen haben und das Ganze bis zum Ende verfolgt haben. Und das ist, glaube ich, ein Zeichen für zukünftige schwarze Schäfchen. Betrügen zahlt sich nicht aus.
Das ist sehr schöne Worte. Luki, du bist nicht allein da. Was haben Mama und Papa gesagt?
Ja, die Mama, glaube ich, kann sich auch noch genau erinnern an das Rennen. Die haben viele Nerven verloren, weil der letzte ist wieder daneben gegangen. Also von dem her, ich glaube, sie freut sich gleich wie ich frei.
Gut, und jetzt höre ich auf, weil die haben alle da herunten, dein Team ist herunten. Gratuliere nochmal und viel Spaß beim Nachfeiern.
Danke.
Luki Opa!
Okay.